The chief UN weapons inspector reaches an agreement with Iraq.
NATO prepares to send a message to Yugoslavia. Military maneuvers are set to start hours from now. Thanks for joining us. This is WorldView. I'm Gene Randall in Washington.
And I'm Laurie Dew at the CNN Center in Atlanta. The fighting in the Yugoslav province of Kosovo escalated on several fronts Sunday. At least 5 people died. Weeks of fighting have forced thousands of refugees into northern Albania. Relief officers are preparing for the arrival of even more people unless something is done. Western allies plan to send a warning to Yugoslavia Monday, stop the crackdown on ethnic Albanians in Kosovo, or face possible military action. CNN military affairs correspondent Jamie McIntyre has this report.
The roar of NATO warplanes will echo off the hills of Albania and Macedonia in a show of force designed to underscore the threat of airstrikes if Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic doesn't end his crackdown on ethnic Albanians in Kosovo. NATO sources say up to 30 warplanes from the United States, Great Britain, France, Italy, and Canada will conduct mock bombing runs along the border of Kosovo with Albania and Macedonia. Sources say no real bombs will be used and that military planners are counting on news reports to convey the message that NATO is ready to back up diplomatic demands with military force.
If President Milosevic does not implement fully the action plan we agreed, further consequences will follow.
NATO sources say those further consequences will include possible airstrikes against Yugoslav army targets, or possibly imposition of a no-fly zone over Kosovo that could also involve a heavy weapons exclusion zone. The question is, can air power alone coerce Milosevic to back down? In 1995, the Bosnian Serbs signed the Dayton Peace Accords after a NATO bombing campaign. But some observers say the Bosnia model doesn't apply to Kosovo.
There's a real danger here, though, okay? Just like Bosnia, we have not clearly focused on what the political outcome is that we want to see. And what we have is by NATO, and I think by this administration, an incremental military move down a slippery slope that's going to get us into the same type of unfortunate situation we're in Bosnia now.
NATO planners will include on their list of options the possible use of ground troops to secure borders. But Pentagon officials see little chance the U.S. will agree to deploy any of its soldiers in another war zone. Jamie McIntyre, CNN, the Pentagon.
The United Nations has announced an agreement with Iraqi leaders that maps out a schedule for future weapons inspections. CNN's Jane Araf has a report from Baghdad.
It's taken a lot of handshakes over 7 years, but Iraq and UN weapons inspectors seem to have agreed to get down to business. The deal, announced after 2 days of talks between Baghdad and UNSCOM, sets out a framework to close the files on Iraq's chemical, biological, and long-range ballistic weapons.
We have completed some very searching talks and have agreed upon a schedule of work, a work program for the next 2 months on outstanding disarmament issues.
That's a breakthrough. It's the first time Iraq has agreed to discuss with weapons inspectors a broad framework of questions. Until now, Baghdad had insisted that it had given all the information it had.
We had a very fruitful meeting these 2 days. The exchange of views and discussions were businesslike and professional. And we agreed on a schedule for the work for the next 2 months.
Butler said he and Aziz would meet again in August to review progress.
The aim of this activity is to bring to an end as soon as possible, but legitimately, validly, the work of the disarmament of Iraq's prescribed weapons of mass destruction.
If Iraq provides the evidence and documents UNSCOM is looking for, Butler could certify when he reports to the Security Council in October that Iraq has destroyed its deadliest weapons, the requirement for lifting sanctions. This is just the first step in what's likely to be a difficult process, but it's a step that Iraq has resisted taking till now, and it's UNSCOM's best shot in 7 years at wrapping up the legacy of the Gulf War. Gene?
Jane, there's probably a long answer to this, but try a short one. Why did it take 7 years?
Well, both sides seem to have come to the table with an unprecedented willingness to be flexible. On Iraq's part, it's desperate to have sanctions lifted. In addition to feeding its people, it wants money for oil repairs, to repair its oil industry. It wants money to repair its infrastructure, and that money has not come easily under the limited amount of oil it's been able to sell. On UNSCOM's part, we had the rather remarkable sight of Richard Butler coming here just 2 days ago and saying that he had been reading and rereading the Security Council resolution passed after the Gulf War, the original ceasefire resolution, to find creative ways that they could wrap up this process. He's been under a lot of pressure at the Security Council, with some Security Council members asking, why is it taking so long and why have you not found anything? So both of them really did want to come here and find a way out of this. Jane?
Jane Araf in Baghdad. Thank you, Jane. Lori?
In India, leaders met Sunday to discuss restarting talks with nuclear rival Pakistan. The two countries have a long-running bitter dispute over the divided mountainous Kashmir region. On Friday, India and Pakistan exchanged invitations for a high-level dialogue. Both countries have been hit with economic sanctions for their nuclear tests. The border between North and South Korea has long been considered another possible flashpoint for armed conflict in Asia. As part of Ground Zero, our week of special coverage of nuclear proliferation, CNN's Song Jie tells us there is renewed concern about making sure nuclear weapons never become part of such conflict.
In South Korea, military defenses are just as much of daily life as a picnic on a summer day. This family park in central Seoul is situated beside the headquarters for the 37,000 U.S. troops stationed here. They and the approximately 1 million South Korean troops stand guard against a possible attack by North Korea. The two Koreas have remained hostile ever since the Korean War, and every once in a while the tension rises. Living under the constant threat of war is bad enough even under the most peaceful of circumstances. But when nuclear weapons get involved, it significantly raises the stakes. 5 years ago, North Korea was strongly suspected of trying to develop nuclear weapons. To stop this, Washington and Pyongyang signed an agreement that essentially provided for the North to give up its nuclear program in exchange for brand new nuclear power stations. Washington heads up the international consortium which builds the power plants, the Korean Peninsula Energy Development Organization. But it was agreed the South would foot as much as 70 to 80% of the multi-billion-dollar bill. That was before South Korea's economic meltdown. Recent talks between Cato members about bill sharing have not been conclusive, and North Korea has already started rumbling about Washington not keeping up its part of the deal. Concerns have started rising about the possibility, however remote, of the North restarting their nuclear program.
But somewhere down the line, if something didn't click right, and if the Keto project went awry because of the bill problem, I suppose this is an option that one cannot completely exempt.
The South has so far said it is prepared to keep up its part of the deal. But some here are already saying if Washington and the international community want to prevent nuclear proliferation on the Korean peninsula, they must be prepared to give South Korea a break.
Because otherwise, I mean, it seems, common sense would tell you that it seems quite silly for South Korea to be in this terrible economic crisis situation and be putting up billions of dollars to build a nuclear plant, light water reactors in North Korea. It just doesn't make sense.
What does seem to make sense is the fact that keeping the Korean peninsula nuclear-free is crucial to realizing the goal of one day freeing summer days from military threats. Son Jie, CNN, Seoul.
All this week, CNN takes an in-depth look at nuclear proliferation. Ground Zero, a CNN special report on the global threat of nuclear weapons, past, present, and future, airs Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern.
Still ahead on WorldView, the Asian financial crisis hits home for some college students here in the United States. And more on Operation Tailwind from the Vietnam War.
I don't invest for a living, so I'm not comfortable judging what risk is right or too much, whatever. That's what I have Oppenheimer funds for.
Oppenheimer funds, the right way to invest. Independent McPherson struts with aluminum control arms and hollow tube stabilizer bars. That's handling. Rack and pinion hydraulically assisted steering. That's cornering. Four-wheel vented discs, monoblock fixed caliper, 4-piston ABS 5 brakes. That's stopping. Continental Performance Tires. The tires that make all that stuff work. Continental, the driver's tire.
It's kind of a free-for-all.
Hey, it's good to see you.
How are you?
I mean, between like you in the
Something
kitchen.
smells great.
Anyone for wine?
Wine's
Fetzer.
great. I think I like the red.
Here, hold on, let me set the tables.
These are the days.
I hope you guys like garlic.
Enjoy the wine.
Hey, what did you think of that?
Fetzer Vineyards.
It has arrived. The all-new 1999 Chrysler LHS. Timeless design, luxurious appointments, and power inside and out. On one hand, it's exceptionally quiet. On the other hand, it screams luxury. The 1999 Chrysler LHS. Chrysler, engineered to be great cars. Lease the all-new 1999 Chrysler LHS for just $399 a month.
Sure, I want to be involved in my investments, but not overwhelmed. Our financial advisor has us where we get what we need to be confident.
Oppenheimer Funds. The right way to invest.
Soon, you'll get more for your money. 30 minutes more. Look for the premiere of the new Moneyline News Hour with Lou Dobbs, beginning Monday, June 22nd, 6:30 Eastern, on CNN.
Many Asians attending colleges in the United States are facing hardships because of events back home. Their parents are having trouble paying tuition and other expenses because of Asia's economic downturn. So the U.S. government is changing some rules to help the international students stay in class. CNN's Jim Hill has more.
The University of California, Irvine is a world away from the financial problems in Asia, but many of these students are feeling the crunch anyway.
At first, I didn't know what to do.
Jeon Young Kim says her parents in Korea are struggling to pay her international student fees because of the financial crisis there.
I'm paying 4 times more than regular student. I'm paying non-resident fee, and times that by 2, it was very incredible effect on my family and me.
To help students like Kim, the U.S. government is relaxing its rules for international students from Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, South Korea, and the Philippines. They are now allowed to reduce their study load and work off campus.
We're hoping that it will allow those students whose means of financial support come from one of those 5 countries to remain in the United States to complete their studies.
International students pay high tuition and fees to study in the U.S., about $5,000 per quarter here at UC Irvine. Normally, they must be enrolled full-time and are not allowed to hold jobs off campus, so their support must come from their homeland.
But the arithmetic for that has changed drastically. Tuition has to be paid in U.S. dollars, and the countries in crisis have found their currency sharply devalued.
If you compare with the Asian economic crisis, the currency exchange dropped almost 200%. So that means my parents are supposed to work 16 an hour a day now to send me the same amount of U.S. dollar.
Educators hope the relaxed rules will help because many of the international students now suffering financially are close to graduation.
Their families have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on their education in the United States, and to leave right now without the degree is heartbreaking.
It's also a worry that is widespread. Across the country, there are 80,000 international students banking their future on an American education. Jim Hill, CNN, Los Angeles.
Last week, newsstands, CNN and Time reported on a top-secret mission during the Vietnam War. It was called Operation Tailwind. According to military officials with knowledge of the mission, Operation Tailwind held 2 secrets: the killing of U.S. defectors and the use of nerve gas. The Pentagon and other senior military officials say the gas used was tear gas. In tonight's edition of Newsstand, we hear more from veterans of Operation Tailwind and from current and former Pentagon officials. Here is John Camp with an extract from tonight's show. Art Bishop was a pilot who dropped gas during the Tailwind mission.
In my opinion, it was just as I was briefed, tear gas.
Last week, former Secretary of Defense Melvin Laird told the Associated Press the U.S. military did ship, quote, a small amount of sarin nerve gas to Vietnam in 1967, but never used it. General Busby says that GB sarin gas was not even available for use in Vietnam.
Our record search to date indicates that no such munitions with nerve agent fill were ever in Vietnam or the Vietnam Theater of Operations.
Admiral Moore and then Secretary of Defense Laird have said they did not authorize the use of nerve gas. So, if it was used, who could have approved it? Senior military officials at the time of the mission told CNN that approval for the use of nerve gas would have had to come from the Nixon White House. Men on the ground also say they were told the same thing.
We were told that it took White House approval to use this gas because of the secret nature of this type of weapon.
Now, afterwards, they told us that to use the gas, that they had to wake up President Nixon to get him to sign off on it.
That was John Camp reporting. Joining us now is CNN's Peter Arnett, who broke the story last week. Peter, you mentioned last week that President Nixon had a policy of no first use of nerve gas. So tell us about the approval from the White House.
Well, in fact, as we did report last week, that according to our sources, a White House approval was needed for the use of nerve gas. We include tonight in our report the views of two men, or the judgments of two men who were there during Tailwind and who tell us what they heard about White House involvement. The first is John Snipes, who was a Marine helicopter pilot during Tailwind. The second, a man, Mike Shepard. He was a Special Forces SOG team leader. And he was briefed about a powerful gas available for last resort use on covert operations. So we have those views tonight. Two men, 28 years ago, one who was on the ground, Gene, and one who was in the air.
A loud chorus of voices saying this was simply tear gas.
That's what they're saying. It was tear gas, and we did include, in fact, at the top of the report that you just saw, the view of A1 pilot Art Bishop, who flew Tailwind and who did drop gas on NVA and Pathet Lao troops who were about to overrun a group of Americans on the ground. Now, Bishop says he had a direct hit on these enemy forces and enabled American commandos to leave. Very difficult, tight situation. The gas allowed American commandos to leave. Bishop told us it was just tear gas.
And the major elements, then, of what we will see tonight as an extension of what we saw last week?
Well, what we'll have are some more voices about the controversy that our original story generated, Gene.
Peter, thanks very much. You can see the full report by John Camp and Peter Arnett tonight on newsstands, CNN and Time. The program airs Sunday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific. Lori?
The White House calls it a pattern of violating grand jury secrecy laws and says there should be an investigation. Independent counsel Ken Starr acknowledges that he has talked to reporters about his probe of President Clinton, but he denies breaking any laws.
We issued our comment last night, and we conducted ourselves properly and lawfully.
Confirmation that Starr has been the source of some information given to reporters about the Lewinsky probe appears in a magazine article for a new media watchdog publication, Brill's Content. Earlier today, Stephen Brill talked with CNN.
There's obviously leaking going on from both sides. The only leaks that would be illegal would be leaks from the independent counsel's office. I mean, that's the law.
This is not the first time Starr has come under fire for allegedly talking to the news media. In January, the president's personal attorney, David Kendall, asked a federal judge to punish the independent counsel for allegedly leaking grand jury material to reporters. They have a reputation for violence, and they lived up to it at the World Cup. We'll have that story when WorldView continues.
This might be a good time to talk about the Michelin X1. Thanks to Michelin technology, it gives you long mileage and better wet braking than any rain tire. And that should make everyone on a wet road happy.
Michelin, celebrating 100 years of innovation.
For your local reseller, call 1-800-34-XEROX.
Every American Standard air conditioner must endure literally hundreds of inspections before being permitted to leave the factory. And if any little thing is less than perfect, well, we have ways of dealing with troublemakers. Built to a higher standard, American Standard Air Conditioning.
Tonight on CNN Perspectives, the final days of two extraordinary men and the impact their tragic deaths left on the civil rights movement. Assassinated, the last days of King and Kennedy. Tonight on CNN.
Tonight on CNN Newsstand. In the game, they're heroes to millions of kids, but off the court, they let their own children down. NBA stars and their personal fouls. CNN and Time. Tonight, 10, 9 Central on CNN.
I'm watching you, CNN.
In the Midwest, a lot of people spent this day cleaning up in the wake of tornadoes. In Oklahoma City, the strongest twister in 12 years caused power outages and considerable damage. There were also injuries. 18 buildings along Main Street in Sabetha, Kansas were damaged when a tornado touched down there Saturday night. There were no injuries reported in Sabetha. Time now for a check of the weather, and here is Byron Miranda. Byron?
Gene, it's still stormy across the midsection of the U.S. and still wet in the Northeast. Take a look at the radar summary map. We'll start in the middle section of the United States, and you can make out an area of low pressure by the counterclockwise rotation here. Rain showers, thunderstorms right now from Iowa through Missouri. Up towards the Northeast, you see some rain showers there, and then you see the boxes popping up. These are all tornado watch boxes. From Tennessee through Kentucky, across the eastern section of Missouri into Iowa. You have the potential for seeing tornadoes here. Be careful. Southern section of the U.S. pretty quiet down to Florida. Out west, rain showers from Montana through the southwest. Only light rain there. But look at this. High pressure setting in through the southwest. That means beautiful weather on Monday for Albuquerque as well as Denver, back over to Salt Lake, down to Phoenix, over to Las Vegas, across the west coast. One frontal system in the northwest. Seattle, you have a chance of seeing showers because of that during the morning and afternoon hours on Monday. Now take a look at the reason why they're seeing showers in the midsection of the U.S. And then this system here, this low and this frontal system, yeah, more rain showers into Cleveland towards New York City in the afternoon hours. Temps across the map, look at this. Still in the high 90s towards 100s for the southern section of Texas. They set a record in Austin, Texas today, 107 degrees. That's the hottest period. They don't have records that go back any further than saying 107 is the hottest, so that is a record. Let's go up towards the northeast to contrast the air masses here. 70s into New England, and then 60s out towards the west coast, down towards California, around 85 for LA. Precipitation outlook over the next 24 hours, nothing out west, very light rain in the northwest. The real rain again will be in the Ohio Valley towards the northeast, more flooding possible from New England back through the Ohio Valley with 1 to 2 inches of rain possible there. Thunderstorms and a slight chance of showers into Atlanta back towards Tupelo, Mississippi. Map in motion through the evening hours on Monday. You see, there goes the low, there goes the front, and here comes the rain into New York, Philadelphia during the afternoon hours. Probably right around when you have to get in the car to do that commute. Thunderstorms possible across the Ohio Valley towards the northeast, back through, let's go real quickly, Mississippi and Alabama through Louisiana. Lori, now to you.
Byron, thank you. Well, it was an eventful day in World Cup soccer, both on and off the pitch. First, let's take a look at some scores. Croatia defeated Jamaica's Reggae Boys by a score of 3-1 in a festive atmosphere. Yugoslavia defeated Iran 1-0 after a scrappy match. And a young Argentina team beat Japan by the same score, 1-0. And there were some disturbing developments away from the matches. English fans in the port city of Marseille attacked Tunisian fans and battled local police. There were a few minor injuries and nearly 100 arrests.
When CNN Sunday returns, the Puerto Rican Day Parade in New York. Seinfeld was not there.
Disgusting.
Completely tasteless. The champagne's not Corbel.
Corbel, for people who know champagne.
With locations in over 1,800 cities and towns, there's always a Days Inn hotel nearby. Wherever you're going, wherever you're from. Days Inn. There you go.
In the global economy, companies can't afford to shut down. So America's largest generator of electricity never rests. Southern Company uses its resources to track the availability of oil, gas, and electricity 24 hours a day. We keep businesses up and running while saving them millions. So at the end of the day, businesses everywhere know we're at work, keeping the power on. We are Southern Company, energy to serve your world.
The Spine Tingler.
The potential of a true sports car is something you experience, you feel.
That first 300 became a legend in its own time.
The old 99 Chrysler 300M.
To get the feel of this automobile, you really have to drive it.
It holds the road with the widest stance of any other car in its class. The Chrysler 300M. The technology has changed, but the soul lives on. Lease the all-new 1999 Chrysler 300M for just $389 a month.
A moment of goodwill brought to you by O'Doul's, a proud sponsor of the 1998 Goodwill Games. This New York landmark has welcomed the greatest fighters ever. This summer, the tradition continues.
It starts with the finest two-row barley, caramel roasted for a rich, full-bodied flavor. Then married with a blend of hand-picked domestic and imported hops. In this time-honored craft, perfection can now be found in an exceptional-tasting, non-alcohol brew. Introducing O'Doul's Amber from Anheuser-Busch. It's what to ask for when all you want is taste.
Madison Square Garden will host the world's best amateur boxers at the Goodwill Games. With past gold medalists including Oscar De La Hoya and Felix Savan, this summer's battles will surely preview tomorrow's world champions. This moment of goodwill has been brought to you by O'Doul's.
Money Week is coming up next. Terry Keenan and John Defterios have a preview.
A global flight to quality bonds soar, but stocks continue to bleed.
Intel braces for a battle with Uncle Sam.
And World Cup fever spells big bucks for companies around the globe.
Those stories and a whole lot more ahead on Money Week.
And at the top of the hour on The World Today, meet a man who wants to be the first American to make it into space without the help of NASA.
And finally, New Yorkers today celebrated Puerto Rican culture with a parade through the streets of Manhattan. There were scores of politicians, floats, and bands in this year's 40th annual Puerto Rican Day Parade. And the red, white, and blue colors of the U.S. territory were proudly on display. Especially important to some parade participants who felt the event had been maligned on an episode of the television sitcom Seinfeld. And that's it for WorldView. I'm Gene Randall in Washington. Have a great week. Good night, Lori.
Good night, Gene. And I'm Lori Dew at the CNN Center in Atlanta. Thank you for joining us.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Bell Atlantic, your guide through the wiles of communications.
A CNN special report explores the nuclear threat, past, present, and future. Ground Zero, Tuesday, 10/9 Central on CNN.
Hi, folks. The grass may be turning green, but it takes no green to buy our gorgeous machines. At Southeast Jeep, Chrysler, Plymouth, Hyundai. Used cars like this 93 Hyundai Sonata, 0 down and only $89 a month. Or this gorgeous 93 Geo Tracer, only 0 down and only $119 a month. Save your green and get a gorgeous machine at Southeast Jeep, Chrysler, Plymouth, Hyundai. But only if you call me now.
What the stadium started, the tornado tried to end. But Major Discount Furniture is, for the past 7 days, the Major Discount Insurance Broker has held a special sale. Hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of slightly damaged brand name merchandise was sold. Now we're moving all remaining inventory to a huge tent in our parking lot and selling it at below wholesale. Some as low as 50% off our cost. Lamps as little as $7. Solid wood nightstands, $15 to $25. Fluffo, Cellini, Crawford, Giorgio Leone leather. In the tent, now till it's gone. First come, first serve. Major Discount Furniture Stores, 201 Woodland Street, Nashville, and Dixon Plaza Shopping Center, Dixon.
This is CNN.
A losing week for stocks on Wall Street, but interest rates dropped to unheard of levels. We'll have all the numbers.
Is a potato chip without calories too good to be true? Procter &